Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, Awesome Aurora. Experience the Northern Lights like never before. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leader Eleanor Edye. I'm your host, Rob Bess. Thank you for being here with us today. Take it away, Eleanor.
Hi, everybody, and thanks so much, Rob, for the lovely intro. As Rob had noted, unfortunately, the webcam will not be up today, but instead you'll get these beautiful shots of what you can expect on your upcoming trip instead. So as Rob mentioned, my name is Eleanor. I'm one of our Canadian expedition leaders on this program, our Northern Lights and Arctic Exploration Program. This is an upcoming trip that you may be registered for, and it runs mid-January through to about 2/3 of the way through March. And it starts in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and goes up to Churchill, a place that you may have heard about for Northern Lights, polar bears, as well as our beluga whale programs that we run there. And it is known as one of the best places on Earth for a chance to see the Northern Lights. Today's program is going to be about going through kind of everything that you need to know as you get ready for your upcoming Northern Lights and Arctic exploration trip. So one thing I want to just let you know is that in this program, we actually offer two separate itineraries. One is the one that I am going to be talking about, the Northern Lights and Arctic exploration, but there is also a photography trip version. They're very similar programs. They visit, the same place. They both go to Churchill. They both start in Winnipeg. But no pun intended, they do both have a different focus on the trip, where the photography trip is, of course, focused on getting you those photographic opportunities. This webinar is going to focus on that, the Northern Lights and Arctic exploration trip. If you are signed up for a Northern Lights photo trip, or if you have kind of some really specific photography questions, that webinar is going to run on January 8th, coming up in just over a week. So by all means, there's going to be time for questions. I'm happy to answer maybe some of the more straightforward photography questions as well, but do know that there's a whole other webinar coming for those photo trips. So as I mentioned, this trip starts in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is close to where I am from. It's just north of the North Dakota border, and most folks who are coming on this trip will likely fly into Winnipeg, and then we're going to travel with our group up to Churchill, Manitoba, this beautiful, small, remote northern outpost town located on the shores of Hudson Bay. And during this trip, you're going to have this incredible immersion into this small but very, very special place. This image here is the whole town of Churchill, and we're going to spend the majority of our time in this town as well as around in the surrounding areas. It's whether it's daytime when we're exploring or nighttime when we're hoping to see lights, there are many wonders of the area, and we really just can't wait to share its magic with you. I always consider it and think of it as a land of harshness and very stark beauty. And I can't wait to get you up there so you can experience its magic as well. So let's take some time going through all that you need to know from the moment that you set foot in Winnipeg. So this trip begins, like I mentioned, in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And depending on how you are flying into Winnipeg, some folks certainly choose to drive if you're coming from somewhere close to, but most of our guests will fly in. This will be kind of one of your first sights as you hit the Winnipeg airport. And you can see here down into the baggage carousel area. And where I'm standing when I took this picture was from one of the domestic arrivals area. So I got off the plane, I stood beside the Starbucks kiosk, and I looked down at the baggage carousel area. You can see that there are 3 baggage carousels. On your left-hand side, if you look over to that side, you can see that there's a little door on the left. That is where the international arrivals pop out. So if you have arrived on a flight directly from the US, This might be through Minneapolis or Atlanta or LA or one of the various direct flights that we have that go to Winnipeg. You are going to come out through that little door on the left-hand side into the main arrivals hall after you have already gone through Canadian Customs and you have retrieved your baggage. You will come out and be met by somebody wearing a NatHab logo, waiting for you to greet you. If you have come into Canada via another Canadian port of entry, so say for example, you flew in through Toronto or Montreal or Calgary and transferred, and then you've come in via a domestic flight, you are going to probably stand pretty close to where I'm standing for this picture. And then you come down an escalator on the right-hand side of this image to collect your baggage at one of these main carousels. And again, you're going to have somebody there ready to greet you in the moment that you arrive in that arrivals hall. Because we want to take care of you from the very moment that you arrive into that baggage arrivals hall until the moment that you get back to the airport and are heading home. Sometimes we have questions about whether there's any special paperwork required at the border anymore in regards to, a few years ago there was COVID paperwork that was required. There's nothing like that anymore. It's a regular entry, so you'll present your passport and talk to the customs agent. There's no masking required on planes nor on the trip itself, though many people still choose to wear them to reduce their risk of getting sick while traveling. And you'll see in some of the upcoming images that some folks on trip will also continue to choose to wear masks while on trip to reduce their own risk during travel, but it is not mandatory. So again, that's our arrivals hall. Those arriving direct from the US, you will go through customs, collect your baggage, and then arrive in this area. And NatHab will be there ready to greet you. And if you've arrived domestically, you're going to come down the escalator on the right-hand side there. Again, one of us will be there ready to greet you and will collect your bags and get going. This next image here is just another different angle on the arrivals hall. So that's the escalator that I was talking about. And you can see that Starbucks kiosk up at the top there. That's where I was standing when I took that last image. So if anybody has any questions about that arrivals, I'm really happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. What to know is that when you provide your flight information to NatHab, we collect that and we use that to track your arrival so that we are there and ready for you when you arrive. If you have a flight that's arriving a little bit earlier than scheduled or that's arriving later than scheduled, we're keeping track of that. There's no need to call and let us know because we're already watching for it. If you've had a significant disruption and you've been rebooked onto a whole different flight, please call the office in that case and follow the directions inside your information package about where to call so that we can get your new flight information and be there to pick you up at for your new flights. Again, if it's the same flight number, nothing's changed except the time, no problem, we're watching for that. But if you have a whole different flight that you've been assigned to, just give us a shout so we can be there to greet you when you arrive. For those who are perhaps arriving early into Winnipeg, maybe you're arriving a day or two early just in case of anything being disrupted, we're still going to be there to pick you up as long as you're coming to our hotel that we booked for the trip. If you're arriving early and maybe visiting with friends, going to a different hotel, then it's going to be a self-transfer to the hotel for you afterwards. Okay, so that's the Winnipeg airport. So like I said, you're going to be greeted. We're going to get you your bags and get you to the hotel. If you have money to exchange, the airport is really the last easy chance for money exchange, but there are ATMs available in the hotel in Winnipeg, as well as ATMs available in Churchill as well. And throughout Winnipeg and in Churchill too, credit cards are very widely accepted. If you want cash for gratuities or incidentals like alcoholic beverages, then you might just want to hit one of the ATMs at one of the hotels. Or like I say, take advantage of the money exchange offered at the airport here. So there's the Winnipeg Airport. So we'll say goodbye to that and we'll head to our Winnipeg accommodations. So this is the Hotel Fort Garry. It's located in downtown Winnipeg, about a 20-minute drive from the airport, depending on traffic. It's really convenient for a lot of things. It's close to museums, it's close to shopping and restaurants. You know, like I said before, many folks choose to arrive a day or two early in case of flight disruptions in the winter to make sure that you're here on time for your trip. And if you show up a day or two early and you're like, what can I do in Winnipeg? Where should I go? Either the hotel concierge or the NatHab on-site staff here at the hotel are really happy to provide lots of good recommendations if you arrive early into Winnipeg and then are looking to make the most of your time in Winnipeg. When we're at the hotel here, aside from like just kind of coming together and resting after perhaps a long flight, there's a few things that are going to happen in Winnipeg before we head up to Churchill. One of the big things that's going to happen is, of course, going to be meeting with your group, having a welcome dinner, learning more about your trip and what to expect that night. But before we're going to meet the rest of our group and have that welcome dinner, there's actually a whole other scheduled thing, and this is gear pickup, because we are going to a potentially very cold place, and we like to make things as easy as possible for everybody. You do not need to go out and buy a whole set of gear to exist in the subarctic. We have the gear to set you up for success. And these fine people here are demonstrating kind of the list of loaner items that we have available. So when you show up in Winnipeg and you're welcomed and greeted at the airport, one of the things that you're going to get is a welcome letter telling you who your guide is, what time and at what room your welcome dinner is going to be in. And it's also going to give you your assigned pickup time for gear on the first day of your trip. We have assigned time so that you have the opportunity to meet your guide and start chatting with them to ask any questions. And if possible, we ask you to stick to your assigned time. That's great. That's when you're going to meet your guide. But if you happen to arrive a little bit later, or if it's just not convenient for you, we have options and we're happy to help you whenever you show up and need the help. We have Winnipeg-based workers who are going to make sure that, you know, if you arrive early to Winnipeg and it's -30 and you need a parka, we're going to make sure that you get a parka when that is needed. But we do have these assigned pickup times because it does take a while to try on all this gear and to make sure that we're getting you set up for success for the trip. So we have a parka, a fleece jacket, as you can see in the left-hand image here, the parka with the fleece jacket underneath. We have snow pants, we have boots, we have these leather mittens, as you can see in the image. We have fleece net gaiters, we have fleece hats, we have a fleece balaclava, and we have chemical hand and foot warmers. And those are considered disposable items, those hand and foot warmers, so we'll have lots of them available throughout the trip. These other things are loaners, so we will get you to try them on, you'll pick the sizes that work best for you, you'll take them up on your trip, and then you return these things at the end of your adventure. If you have any sizing questions, a few things I just want to let you know is that we have for our parkas, pants, and fleece jackets, they're available from sizes from extra small up to 3X, as well as some limited sizing in our parkas and pants up to 5X. For boots, we have from size women's 6 up to men's 15. And if you are somebody with feet smaller than a size women's 6, we also have some youth sizing available too. One thing I want to mention about the hat is that we do have these hats available for loan. You may have noticed as well as you've gone onto your portal and had a look around that the hat is one of those that's available as a booking gift. So regardless of whether you've chosen this hat as a booking gift or you have other hats, we really recommend that when you come from home, that you ensure that you're traveling with a hat that you know fits comfortably over your ears, so that this hat that we have can be an alternative or a backup, because it's often nice to have a second set of these small items in case they get a little bit damp and sweaty during the day. So that's what we're going to kit you out with during that assigned gear pickup time. In some cases, this goes very quickly. In some cases, it takes a while to get you all situated and comfortable with all this gear. If you own any of these items already and prefer to use your own gear, or if you have, really specific boot or sizing needs, for example, you've got, locked up ankles and are unable to bend your foot to get into boots, and you know that you need your own pair, by all means, you should certainly feel welcome to bring your own items to be comfortable and able to easily get into them during your trip. Now, this is a trip that does require a lot of packing. Because we go into very cold areas, your comfort and enjoyment really depends on being able to bring the right things to keep you warm and comfortable. I'm going to go through some of the highlights around this, but please know that you can, either watch this webinar again when the link is sent out, or you can also consult your pre-departure briefing, which is available in your portal, or you may have received it as a printed copy. The items that we provide that I just talked about are listed in that packing list inside your pre-departure briefing, but they'll be shown as already checked off, so you know that we have them in Winnipeg. Inside this pre-departure briefing, there's a lot of other information in here as well, everything from what to expect for power outlets, some recommended reading material, things like that. And I really recommend that you take some time to go through it and check out what we've written inside the pre-departure briefing. I'm going to go through kind of a non-exhaustive list. What I would suggest we pay particular attention to for packing for your clothing and personal gear that you're going to bring with you from home. One of the things that you're going to want to make sure that you have are indoor shoes or slippers, because the boots that we have, they're great. They're comfortable for outside. They're probably not what you want to wear as you go from your hotel room down to breakfast in the morning. Slippers are perfectly appropriate, or runners, jogging shoes, something like that are great for inside the hotel. You're going to want to bring an extra mid-weight layer. Something that I would wear would be something like a lightweight down or a lightweight synthetic puffy jackets. And this adds extra warmth if it's a particularly cold night. I would recommend bringing at least 2 pairs of glove liners. Glove liners are a thin glove that you wear inside your mitten. And the idea behind these is that when you're working outside, maybe you're taking photos, maybe you just want to zip up your jacket a little bit more, and you need that fine motor skills of your fingers, you still need them covered up because it's really cold. So you have to be able to take your mittens off, but still have something lightweight on your hands so that you're not making direct skin contact with something really cold. And I would also suggest that you make sure that at least one of those pairs are touchscreen sensitive so that you're able to take pictures without taking your gloves off in the cold. Like I said, we do have fleece hats and fleece gaiters available for loan in Winnipeg, but I would always recommend having a second set of these things. Hats, make sure you've got one that comfortably covers your head as well as your ears. And for a face covering, this could be something like a balaclava, it could be a buff or a fleece gaiter. It might be something that's windproof, something more like a ski mask. And that's, again, like, we're going to have one set for you, but because you're going to be breathing out into that face covering, it's really good to have a second one that you can then have dry when your other one gets moist because of your exhalations. So just always having that second set to trade out when something gets a little damp. Warm socks, so something like a thick wool sock or a thick synthetic sock. Again, just like we have glove liners, you're going to want liners for your socks as well. So a very thin layer that goes underneath those warm socks is going to help you with your moisture management and therefore your heat management of your feet. So you don't want 2 or 3 pairs of thick socks. You're going to want one good warm pair of socks every day, and then one thin pair of something like a silk or a merino wool or a polypropylene liner sock. And those liner socks, you're going to want a pair for every day unless you're planning on rinsing them out at night. Definitely long underwear. So again, something warm and comfortable, but especially something that's not cotton. You'll want, again, that merino wool or polypropylene or silk. And you'll want comfortable pants and shirts for layering. Something that's often surprising to a lot of people is that the inside areas, like the indoors, is often really warm. And you think, why is it so warm inside when it's so cold outside? And it's to do with some of the heating systems and how, to maintain that warm building envelope, you have to keep it warm inside. But suffice it to say that when I'm having lunch, I am often in a t-shirt, even if I know I've got 5 more layers to put on before I go back outside. So having those different layering options for inside and outside is going to be really important. When I say comfortable pants as well, I'm thinking of things that can go underneath ski pants. For me, what I would usually wear underneath my snow pants is going to be something like a fleece pant or a fleece legging, something that adds warmth, but something that's not going to create a lot of bulk. It's not going to have a really thick waistband that's going to be uncomfortable over time, and it's not going to be made of cotton. So again, something that is more performance-based, like a fleece or like a wool, that will still be comfortable as I take my ski pants off when I'm inside. Please make sure that you bring sunglasses with you. Even though we're at a time of year when there's not a lot of incident sun, the ground is covered with snow and there is an awful lot of glare. So whether it's regular sunglasses or prescription sunglasses, whatever you need to keep that glare down on your eyes. And ski goggles are really handy as well for reducing the amount of wind around your eyes. So it very much increases the warmth around your face. If you're somebody who uses corrective lenses, and you can't see me right now, but I am a glasses wearer, and you have the ability to wear contacts, I would thoroughly recommend that you bring enough contacts with you to get you through your trip. While there are tips and tricks we can use around glasses, they will never be as good as contact lenses for avoiding fogging and freezing up in the cold. And like I said, I've been living in the cold all my life, and I work up in Churchill in the winter, and I've been wearing glasses a very long time, and you'd think I'd know how to keep glasses clear by now if there's a way, and there is simply no way to completely ensure that they stay clear. So bringing contact lenses, if you're not able to bring lenses, bringing a second pair of glasses, making sure that you're bringing lots of anti-fog wipes or other defogging mechanisms is going to be helpful for you. But if you can get into contacts, I would really advise getting into contacts. Another recommendation, failing contacts, would be that you get yourself a pair of prescription ski goggles, because that will also help you out with avoiding fogging throughout the day and night. Definitely make sure to bring up moisturizer. It's very dry up there in the winter, and if you're traveling on one of our later departures, I would really advise sunscreen for the face as well. I would very much recommend a headlamp with a red light setting. That's going to allow you to have a little bit of ambient light, perhaps as you're working with the camera or moving around in the dark, without reducing your ability to see in the dark by having white light. So red light headlamps, very important. A battery bank is something that you could plug your phone into, or perhaps even plug your camera charger into. As batteries do not hold as much charge in the cold, you might find that having a battery bank on hand for your phone when you're outside at -30 is a really handy thing. And if this all sounds like a lot of stuff and you're saying, wait, Eleanor, you've already handed me all this extra gear. How am I supposed to carry all these things and this extra stuff? Here's another recommendation I've got, which is that you bring a packable, lightweight, small duffel bag for extra gear if you're not traveling with extra space in your suitcase. My first recommendation would be to bring a bag for your trip that has more room in it that you need, because you'll likely want to be putting your snow pants in there to head up to Churchill. But failing that, bringing something small and packable will be really handy for you. And the last thing I want to highlight, again, reminding us all that this is not exhaustive. You'll want to look at the packing list for more things, but these are things that I felt were really worth calling out as important. Please make sure to bring a water bottle. You'll likely have received a water bottle as a welcome gift. You can bring that one, or you can bring another personal water bottle, but we will not be providing disposable cups or water bottles on the trip. So it is important that you bring some kind of water bottle along with you. Okay, that's a big, long list. If that sounds like you're going to need a big bag, you probably will. I certainly travel with a big suitcase for this season as well, because all of these layers do take up space. And all of these layers kind of come into our clothing system. What I want to highlight here is that all of these things are going to play a part in our layering system. The goal as we get dressed is to always have the layer closest to our skin being some kind of base layer that has a wicking property. So its job, being at the bottom layer, closest to skin, is to keep your skin dry and to stop you from feeling chilly and damp. So things like polypropylene, silk, or merino wool are going to be your best choices for your base layer. Your next layer is what we call your mid layer. That's your warm, puffy things. So things like fleece, things like down or other synthetic puffy. That's where we add the warmth to our layers. And then your outer layer is meant to be a protection against the elements. So it's windproof and waterproof. The snow pants and the jacket that we are going to provide also have some insulation to them, but they provide that shell effect as well. And then if you have a cold day, you add more mid layers. And if you have a warmer day, you have fewer mid layers. So it allows us to kind of take things off or put things on as the conditions require, whether it's, a warm lunch when you're down to your t-shirt or your base layer, or whether it's a cold -40 day when you've got everything on. The weather that we're going to be dealing with really is quite variable, week to week, but also where in the season we are. When you arrive in Winnipeg, January tends to be our coldest month, with an average high of 7 Fahrenheit and an average low of -13. It can certainly be warmer or colder than that. And then March is usually our warmest month of the season, with a daytime high close to the freezing mark, but it can again be much warmer or colder than that. On average, Churchill kind of runs a similar pattern, but colder. So our average nighttime low in January, as well as in February, is around the -25 to -30 Fahrenheit. And if we have any wind that adds into this, it might feel quite a bit colder than that. So last January, for example, we had conditions that ran from around 30 Fahrenheit, which was very warm for January, down to -40 and even colder with the wind chill, as low as about -52 with the wind chill. So some trips, you may use every single piece of warm gear that you have. Some warmer weeks, you might not need as much, but of course, weather is impossible to predict that far out. My recommendation is to bring all the layers you might potentially need. And then if you end up having a warm week and you don't need that extra mid layer, hey, you know what? At least you had it as an option in case it was really cold. Because it's, not much fun to be really cold. I do want to take a minute to just talk about photography gear packing. Again, reminding us that there will be a photography webinar specifically on January 8th for our Northern Lights photo trips. But if you're not on a photo trip, you can absolutely still take photos, right? Your guide can help you get set up for some wonderful photographic opportunities. If you don't own a camera already, there's probably no need to go out and buy a camera. Probably your smartphone already has a really good camera built into it. Most of the newer smartphones, if your smartphone's 2 to 3 years old or newer, is going to have the ability to take pictures of the Northern Lights. Generally speaking, the newer the better. This picture that I have here, I'm showing it to you not because it's, the best photo I've ever taken, but because I just took it freehand while I was out for a walk with my phone, right? And my phone is now 3 years old. So that's to show you that phones can do an amazing job of taking images of the Northern Lights. And if you're not already really settled with a DSLR camera, probably your smartphone's going to be far and away the easiest way for you to get those images. If you are comfortable with your camera though, and you want to bring your DSLR, for sure you can. I'll just go through the packing list right away, but I do want you to be aware that with those cameras, we're going to be working in the dark, in the cold, where conditions are challenging, your batteries are going to die, and not every camera is able to take these images. You'll likely not be able to touch your camera with bare fingers because your fingers would freeze to the camera. Cameras need to be able to go into a full manual mode to take shots of the Northern Lights. If you have a bridge camera, for example, one that has an integrated lens, as opposed to one with interchangeable lenses, you will likely be not able to take pictures of the Northern Lights with it. So if you're still interested after hearing that, listen away for your packing list. If you're traveling with us on one of our Northern Lights photo trips, we will have a tripod there for you. If you're traveling with us on one of our Northern Lights and Arctic exploration trips, we will have a selection of loaner tripods. But if you would like exclusive use of a tripod just for you, please do bring your own because we don't have enough for everybody on these trips. Bring the widest angle lens you have for Northern Lights, and then you might want your zoom or telephoto for daytime photography if we see any wildlife. You'll want a bag, like a Ziploc or a dry bag large enough to fit your camera with your lens on it, lens cleaners and cloth, extra batteries, possibly as many as 3 or 4 would not be overkill, extra memory cards in case you have any failures, a good camera case that's going to keep your camera safe during transit, a battery charger, your lens hood and caps, and if you're planning on taking photographs over the snow during daylights, a polarizing filter will be helpful for you as well. Okay, that is all I'm going to talk about for gear to bring, unless there are any questions later on. So you've arrived in Winnipeg, you've been greeted at the airport, you've gotten to the hotel, you picked up your gear, you met your guide, you had your welcome dinner, you had a lovely sleep at the Hotel Fort Garry. What is next? Well, your next day, you're going to get on a plane like this and fly up to Churchill direct. So the flights to Churchill, it's about 650 miles, more or less straight north. There is a bathroom on board this plane. It's about 2 to 2.5 hours. And as you can tell from the size of the plane, more than one group will be traveling at the same time. So we'll usually have 3 trips that go up on a plane at the same time and then 3 trips coming back at the same time to maximize our use of these resources. In terms of luggage allowance, I do want to take a minute to go through this because there's a lot of words around this and I'd like it to be well understood how it works. What we say for luggage allowance is that you can have a maximum of 2 bags with a combined weight of no more than 70 pounds. If you would like to take a bag as a carry-on, so on the plane with you, underneath the seat in front of you, it has to meet these guidelines to be allowed on the plane as per Canadian airline regulations. It cannot be heavier than 20 pounds, and these carry-on bags will be weighed, and it cannot be larger than 10 by 16 by 12 inches. So that is approximately the size of like a medium-sized backpack, roughly. It's not the size of one of the big roller bags that you might travel with as carry-on on a larger plane. And if your carry-on is heavier than this or larger than this, I'm going to talk in just a second about what we can do. But basically, larger carry-ons can't go in the plane with you. They will go with the luggage in the back or the front of the plane. If you have items with lithium batteries, like a cell phone or an iPad, or the batteries for your cameras, they have to travel in the main cabin. So if, for example, you have a big photo bag and you're like, this isn't going to travel with me, it's too heavy, you're going to take out the batteries from that bigger bag, stick them in your pockets or stick them in your purse, and carry them onto the plane with you. If you are traveling and you have some extra stuff that you don't want to go to Churchill with, we are very, very happy to store excess items in Winnipeg. So let's just run through an example of a couple of different ways you can make up this luggage allowance, right? Say you're traveling, you have a standard size suitcase, it's less than 50 pounds, and you have a backpack that you're carrying a small camera in, and a book and your water bottle and things like that. And your carry-on is less than 20 pounds, and it's large enough that it's going to fit under the seat in front of you. You're going to carry that as a carry-on, and it's going to come on the plane with you and go underneath the seat. If you have a carry-on that perhaps you've already traveled with as a carry-on on a jet, and you got here with it, but it's like one of those roller bags, for example, and it's a bigger backpack, or it's a bigger camera bag, or maybe it's just over 20 pounds because you have a lot of lenses in it. That cannot come on the plane with you. It's going to travel with the luggage as something that we call valet. So I have an image here coming up of my valet bag to give you an idea on the size. So this is my camera bag, and that's my dog, just to give you some idea of a size reference. This is a carry-on bag that fits the standards of like United, Delta, Air Canada, but it does not fit the standards for our internal flight to Churchill. This is how I carry my cameras up to Churchill and back again. I have 2 camera bodies and 4 lenses stuffed into this bag. And for me to take it to Churchill, I'm going to put a valet tag on it and a fragile tag on it. And it's going to travel in the plane with the luggage. And then when we get to Churchill, it's going to be unloaded from the plane first, so I can pick it up before we even get on the bus in Churchill. So because this is my camera bag, and I know usually my cameras have batteries in them, I will actually take all those batteries out before I drop off my bag. And my cameras will fly without their batteries because those batteries have to stay with me on the plane. I know it's a little complicated, but it's how we can meet the regulations that we have in Canada for these planes and still get all of these things that we want to have with us up to Churchill. So typically, if you're traveling with one of these oversized carry-ons, they can be about the size of a carry-on for a normal commercial flight. So if you've got that bigger bag, something like a normal carry-on or a bigger bag like this one, it's going to travel with the luggage in the plane. And if you can see the top of this bag, I've got a little pink tag on it. It says fragile, and we will always make sure to tag all of our fragile items like that. All of the guides, for example, this is how we travel with our cameras to and from Churchill. So it's a really good system. You just need to make sure to pull your batteries out before you go. And that way, when I'm on the plane, maybe I have a little purse or a tiny little day pack that just has my water bottle and a book in it and my camera batteries, and I know that my luggage allowance is being used up by my luggage and my camera bag. So this is what the inside of the plane looks like. As I said, we'll have multiple trips traveling at the same time, but we'll all go up together and we'll all come back together, and it is a very comfortable, very easy flight. But when we get to Churchill, those groups split up and you probably won't really see them again. We have a dedicated bus for each group. They are 24 passenger buses, and we run with a local operator called Great White Bear Tours. And we will never put more than 15 people on this bus. So you'll have lots of room for all of your, big puffy jackets and all of your things, and enough room to spread out. During our trip, we'll be staying with that one bus, except for a time when we get to take this big bus out. So this is what we call our snow coach. The snow coach is able to go over snow and across ice, and we're going to get to travel down a frozen creek and into the forest on the snow coach to one of our exclusive venues. So this will be the only time, though, that we're not with our regular bus, is that when we're on the snow coach. Otherwise, it's one group for one bus and one driver, and we'll really get to settle in to that bus. In Churchill, we have a number of different hotels that we use for accommodations. They all have similar amenities, and the room type will be matched to your booking type. If you have one bed or two beds booked, we'll make sure that you have at least the right number of beds. One thing I would recommend is that if you are a light sleeper, I would say bring earplugs with you, because we are out late at night and it is the Northern Lights season. Other people staying at the hotel may also be out late at night. You might hear people moving around much later at night than you would expect to at a hotel. So earplugs can help reduce that noise and let you get a good night's sleep. As I said before, really do expect the inside of the buildings to generally be quite warm. I would suggest bringing lightweight pajamas with the option to add a warmer layer if you find that you get chilly some nights. We're going to be eating with our groups, and our trip does include all of our meals. Please make sure well in advance of your trip that you fill out your forms in your online portal with your accurate dietary needs and requirements. If you're not sure if you have or you can't remember, pop online to take a peek or call into our office to make sure that they're still up to date. On our trips, we can accommodate most standard dietary needs like, dairy-free, gluten-friendly, vegetarian, because we recognize it's really important to be properly and safely fed. In Churchill, there may be less variety and fewer options than you are used to, because getting fresh produce to a remote town in the winter is really challenging, but we're going to make sure that you've got food that fits your dietary requirements, as long as you let us know in advance what those are. So we've talked about all you need to have with you. We've talked about the flights, the accommodations, the meals. Let's talk about the most exciting thing, which is going to be the activities in Churchill. So this trip is called Northern Lights and Arctic Adventures. Let's start by talking about the lights, because every night that we are in Churchill, we will be heading out to a designated viewing location to try our chances of seeing the Northern Lights. If you've done some reading around, you likely have already read that Churchill lies underneath the auroral oval. This is the place on Earth where aurora is seen most often. Aurora here, and you can see the little star where Churchill is, it's so regular that there is enough energy for visible aurora over 300 nights a year. And that is, of course, assuming that we removed clouds from the equation, because clouds can certainly have an effect as well. But absent other factors, this is one of the best places on Earth to have the chance of a good luck with the Northern Lights. We are also at a time in the solar cycle, this is an 11-year cycle, when activity is on average even higher than at other times. But honestly, regardless of where the solar cycle is, Churchill is a good place to be at any point, as long as it is dark and you have clear skies. It's really a fantastic, well-known place for the aurora. I do want to quickly talk about viewing the lights and what to expect, because we always get a lot of questions about, do we go out when it's cloudy? Do we go out when there's a full moon? What can I expect when I actually see the lights? So I do want to say that, yeah, we go out. We go out every night as long as it's safe to do so, right? If there is a howling blizzard and we can't even see the road, nope, we're going to stay in town that night. But otherwise, whether it's cloudy or not, whether it's a full moon or not, we are going to go out and try our chances. right? As you can see in this image here, Aurora might be quite visible with a cloud layer, and it can create some really interesting photographic opportunities. Or the clouds might break up partway through the evening. Some nights, some nights we might see little to no aurora, but we always want to position ourselves with the opportunity to take advantage of it should the sky clear and should we be able to have that chance to see it. I have been really lucky to go out and see the aurora many, many times. Whether it's cloudy or clear, whether it's the moon or not, it is always different. Its intensity, its activity, all of these things will always create different experiences. If you're traveling during a time of the full moon, you may actually find that you don't have much need of a headlamp because the moonlight on the white snow can create a surprising amount of ambient light. With this ambient light, the northern lights will sometimes appear to be less bright when they are directly, at the same time as the full moon. One of the advantages of this time is that the photography that happens at the full moon is just magical. And the lights will still be visible to your eyes, even if they are somewhat less bright. The next image I've got is the same location, roughly, with a new moon. And you can see, it's also a little bit out of focus here because it's so hard to focus when it's dark. But you can see how much of a different experience it is without the moon there. So, like I said, every night's always different. Darkness, it makes it harder to set up your camera. It makes it harder to move around because it is often pitch black. And the photography is going to be different when the moon isn't out as well. What I do want to say, though, is that no matter what, when the lights come out, it is completely magical. I'm just showing these pictures so that you have a better understanding of why your photos might look different than what you were expecting, because often we see a lot of photographs during the full moon. If you're not traveling at the full moon, you might have to light up your foreground, you might just have more of a silhouette, but it's still going to be a beautiful light show. Unless you have incredibly adept eyes, you'll also likely find that viewing the northern lights is different with your eyes compared to your camera. It's a really neat and interesting phenomenon, and your guide's going to explain why exactly this works. We have some information on our website as well, because you might have your smartphone and be taking a picture of the northern lights and you say, wow, there's red, there's green. All I can see with my eyes is like a whitish color with maybe a hint of green. It's got to do with the differences in how our eyes perceive light compared to how a camera does. There's no Photoshop involved in making the colors more vibrant on the camera. It's just that our eyes can't perceive things that well. And since most cell phone cameras can capture the lights, it's a really cool way of expanding your experience of this phenomenon. And even if you're not on a photo trip, I always really encourage people to pull out your cameras and start having fun with this, because it really adds to the way that you can experience the northern lights, to see it in these different ways. As an example, like here, the top image here might be what your eyes would see, and the bottom image might be what your camera would see. They're both seeing the same thing, but they're not perceiving it the same way because your eyes just aren't able to pick up those colors in the dark. So like I said, every night we're going to try to go out as long as it's safe to do so, and your group is going to visit a new location each night. As we've said, other groups are in town at the same time, but they're not going to overlap at all. So we have our own location that we go to. So typically you might go to dinner, you might go back to the hotel to get all your gear and get dressed, and then we'd head out to one of these locations. All the locations are wonderful and different, and they all offer great opportunities for viewing and photography if the lights appear. All of these locations have a heated indoor space where you can come to warm up and have a snack or a drink, as well as all of these viewing locations have easy bathroom access. So this picture here is of the Aurora Lodge. Next one here is the Aurora Yurt. This one here is the Aurora Pod. This is the Aurora Sphere, so you can see just into it there with all of the chairs. We have the Aurora Domes. On top of this building here, you can see 2 domes where you can do indoor viewing at this location as well as outdoor viewing. And then this is the Aurora teepee. And last one here is the Aurora cabin that is out in the boreal forest. So of those locations, your trip is going to visit 4 of them. So trips won't visit all 7 of them because you're not in town that many nights, but you'll have a chance to try out one of these beautiful different locations every single night. And they all have just these lovely differences to them to kind of highlight all the things that you can see differently here. But that's not all, because in the daylight, we're going to do things too. And this is, again, one of the often questions that we get is, like, what do we do? Do I just stay up all night? Do I do things during the day? Well, to give you a rough idea about how things go, usually when we're doing Northern Lights viewing, yeah, we're out, we're doing our viewing. We'll have you back at the hotel. This is a real rough approximation, around 1 a.m. maybe, and breakfast might be around 9-ish, just to give you an idea about how the pacing goes. And then during the day, we'll likely have an activity in the morning, we'll have lunch, we'll have an activity in the afternoon, and we'll also make sure to build in some rest time in the afternoon so that you have the energy to stay awake and stay engaged all night too. Because we also, like, it's not just Northern Lights, it is Arctic exploration. We want to enjoy all the wonders of the subarctic in the winter, right? This can be as simple as enjoying the snow. We're going to do some explorations on ice. We'll have some time to, like, really just highlight the outside, to highlight the winter. We'll do interpretive walking, we'll do snowshoeing. Sometimes we fall down at snowshoeing a number of times and get back up. We're going to have a dog mushing opportunity where we'll get to go out on a sled for a little ride and hear all about dog mushing and the culture of dog mushing. And we also have some indoor daytime activities like museum visits and local speakers and exploring everything the town has to offer, as well as all that the subarctic has to offer, right? It's a small town, but it's a busy trip. So we really do try to protect a little bit of nap time in the afternoon so that you've got the energy to stay awake for those Northern Lights. Now, I do want to just point out that while we're there for Northern Lights, and we're crossing our fingers for that, there is still a little bit of Arctic animal action going on in the winter too. We sometimes see Arctic hares. There's a few bird species that stick around, like the raven and the Canada jay and the ptarmigan. So while we don't have polar bears in the winter, if all goes well, we do have some other animals that we do keep our eyes open for as well. It's not just Northern Lights, there's other things going on in the winter too. So I know we're approaching the top of the hour and I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions. So I'll leave us with this beautiful picture of a sunset and clear skies and hand things over to Rob for any questions that have come in.
All right, Eleanor, thank you so much. Now, before we jump into the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. All right, so let's jump into some of these questions. So, in your experience, is there a better month to come and see the Northern Lights? Is there a more likely time to see them?
Yeah, so in my experience, it really comes down to a lot of weather. And the weather can be so variable for any month. We have chosen, as a company, NatHab has chosen the best 3 months overall to run our program. These are widely acknowledged as the best months to come. You've got long hours of darkness. You tend to have more clear skies in the winter. You tend to not have a lot of moisture sticking around to create those clouds. So I would say any of the months that we have chosen are the best times to come. I've had great luck in January, I've had great luck in February, and great luck in March. So it tends to be a little bit less cold in March. So if that's one of your concerns, that could be a thing to keep in mind. But the weather is variable enough that you could have really cold weather or relatively warm weather any of those months.
Great, thank you. So when we head out to the viewing locations, do we sleep there? Are there hotels, or we return to Churchill uh, after we do the viewing?
Yeah, great question. So every night we're going to head out, usually after dinner. So a typical timing would be that we'd have dinner, the sun's going down. As the sun goes down, we wrap up, we head back to the hotel. You get all your warm things, your cameras, your battery packs, your water bottles, and you come out prepared. And then we're out basically until we feel done. And because we work with different drivers, and the drivers need time to sleep as well, of course. We are going to be coming back to the hotel every night at around 1 o'clock. There's some variability built into that, so I don't want to like commit to 1 o'clock as a time. Um, if things are going strong, we stay out. If things are really cloudy and it doesn't look like anything's changing, we might come back earlier. But you will be sleeping at your hotel room in Churchill every night. So we're just going out to these areas for viewing and photographic opportunities. We're not going out to sleep there. I say that. I have caught a lot of people sleeping in chairs at these locations. And if you fall asleep before the lights come out, I will wake you up so you can see them, and your nap doesn't interrupt your ability to see the lights.
Thanks for that. Good to know. Um, so if I am arriving a day early to spend the first day in Winnipeg, is it possible to pick up some of the equipment early in case I'm going to be cold?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So if Winnipeg's really cold and you decide that you need everything, you can pick up as much gear as you need to in advance. Usually what we would do is if it's not super cold in Winnipeg, we'd set you up with whatever you need and then ask you to come back during those gear hours so you can meet the guide, and you can pick up the remainder of your gear that you probably don't need in Winnipeg and just need in Churchill, right? Typically in Winnipeg, you don't need super heavy snow pants. You will need them for Churchill. So it's nice to just, grab your jacket, grab your boots, maybe a hat and mitts when you come to Winnipeg if you're early, and then just come on back to say hi and get the rest of the stuff during the gear pickup time. And we're always really happy to help with that. We want you to be safe and comfortable and warm during all your explorations.
Good to know. Thank you. So are US dollars accepted in the shops there, or should I be converting my money?
Yeah, most of the shops, including the local handicrafters, will almost, as far as I know, all of them will accept US dollars. However, the exchange rates will not be honored, right? If somebody says, oh, these moccasins that I made with my hands are $100, they would take 100 Canadian or 100 US dollars, right? And right now, the exchange rate is really in favor of the US dollar compared to the Canadian dollar. So it would be to your advantage to have some Canadian cash if you want to spend cash, just so you can save a bit of money that way.
Great, thank you. So now all of these loaner items, are they washed between tours? Do we have to worry about cleaning them ourselves?
Oh, you definitely don't need to worry about cleaning them. We sanitize and we'll wash things between tours. So when they're handed to you, they will be in a clean and ready status. No worries there at all.
Great. So are ski goggles something I should consider bringing, or can they be rented in Winnipeg or Churchill?
Yeah, there's no rentals for ski goggles in Winnipeg or Churchill. There is a store within, excuse me, about a 10-minute walking distance from the hotel in Winnipeg that does sell a variety of ski goggles if you get to Winnipeg and decide that you do want to pick some up. I would thoroughly recommend bringing a pair, and I would additionally recommend that you have either two pairs or that your one pair has the ability to swap out lenses. So for me, when I go up, I wear my ski goggles a bunch when it's cold because I don't like having frostbite on my face. And during the day, I like to have ski goggles that act as sunglasses, right? So I wear a tinted pair of ski goggles during the day. At night, it might still be really cold. I might still be outside and it's windy and cold and I want to watch the aurora, and I don't want to watch the aurora through sunglasses. So I have a second pair of ski goggles that have a clear lens for me to use at night. So you can do that by getting a pair of goggles that have interchangeable lenses, or you can do like me and just bring 2 pairs of goggles.
Gotcha. So does the loaner gear weight count towards our flight weight limits in our luggage?
Yes, there's a yes, but. So let me tell you that yes, all weight counts, and all the bags get weighed and they all, have to get on the plane. However, what's going to happen is that when you get on that plane to go to Churchill, you're actually going to be wearing a lot of that gear. You'll probably pack your snow pants. You'll probably, you might pack your fleece jacket or something like that. But because when we get to Churchill, you are going to be stepping off that aircraft and onto the tarmac, and it might be minus 40 when we land. It might be even colder. It could be warmer too. But you are going to need your jacket on the plane, and you are going to be wearing your snow boots. The snow boots and the jacket are the heaviest things. When you wear them, they're not going to count towards your weight. And you need to wear them for safety anyway. So just make sure that you've left some room for things like your snow pants. Leave a little bit of weight if you can. But the snow pants and the mitts and things like that will not add a lot of weight to your bag.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying that. So you said that bridge cameras cannot take photos of the northern lights. Why is that so?
Yeah, it depends on the camera, is what I should specify. Many of them cannot. And the reason being that as you get into the settings, many of those bridge cameras, they look like they can go into a full manual mode. But in fact, because of the hardware of the camera, if you start to, for example, increase your shutter speed, it will automatically decrease your aperture. So you can't get a wide enough lens with a long enough exposure with a lot of those bridge cameras. Not all of them. If you have a bridge camera and you're wondering if it's going to work, open it up, turn it on, go into your full manual settings and see if you can get it to a 30-second exposure with the widest possible aperture you can manage, which might be something like an f4 or maybe an f5 if that's as far as it can go. And if you can get to those settings and it actually takes that picture, you'll probably be fine to use that camera, but many of them simply will not let that happen because the aperture and the shutter speed end up being linked in the software, even if you can't tell it by looking at it. It's a little annoying and a little confusing, but that's what often ends up happening with those bridge cameras.
Gotcha. Thank you for explaining that. So is there an app or any technology for the northern lights that you would suggest us using?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of apps that the guides use. And I mean, the short story is that the guides are going to be keeping track of things. If you want to start looking at things and start paying attention to aurora forecasts and what's going on, my favorite app is called Space Weather Live. And it's all about the space weather that's coming at us. It's got information on solar activity and auroral activity. And a lot of these, if you open it up right now, for example, you'll see that there is a big coronal mass ejection that is expected to hit us tonight. So if you live somewhere that has clear skies tonight, as soon as it's dark, I would get out and check the skies because aurora might be visible down into easily into Minnesota tonight, for example. And if you download Space Weather Live, it's going to have that kind of information in there for you. And it's got some good tutorials to help you interpret that information as well. Another app you can look at that is available both through Android and iOS is just called Aurora. And when you look for it, it's going to be a little purple icon. And it's got some good, easy to interpret forecasts on that as well. It's a good starter app too. If you haven't already downloaded something, that one is going to be a good one to start with and start paying attention to it. So all of that, keep in mind that they're just forecasts. When we go out in Churchill, you might see a forecast that looks fantastic and you look up and you see nothing, or vice versa. So it's the collection of data that helps us make decisions, but it's also kind of exciting to see what's going on for solar weather at any given time. So those are the two that I would recommend checking out if you were interested in that.
Great, thank you. Well, that's going to be the last question that we do have time for today, Eleanor. So I'd like to hand it back to you for your closing comments.
Hey, thanks for coming by today, everybody. And just again, as a reminder, if you have more photo specific questions, or if you're joining a photo trip or interested in the Photo Northern Lights trip, that webinar is going to be happening January 8th with Eddie, one of our lovely photo guides. And we're always really happy to answer questions on that kind of stuff. So thanks so much for coming by. I hope to see some of you in Churchill this year. Take care and Happy New Year.
Eleanor, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab to see the Aurora, give us a call at the number on your screen, or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. And if you're part of a photo club and would like NatHab to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, email us at webinars@nathab.com. Join us Thursday for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.